Thank you very much, and thank you for the warm welcome, and really pleased to have an opportunity to come and speak with you today. And it's nice that we have a panel discussion later on where we can have a bit more of an interaction. Invariably, presentations like mine, there's quite a lot of data. Why is there a lot of data? Well, when you start speaking about men's health, well, 5-10 years ago, you wouldn't have had me up here. You wouldn't have had anybody up here talking about men's health. It would have been something that would have just not been part of the conversation. And really, what we've found in the last 5, 10, 15 years, I suppose, is that more and more people are becoming aware of the fact that actually there is an issue with the health of men. Some not too sure what that means. Some still think it's the dangly bits, the bits below the belt. And obviously a prostate is something to be considered. Some people have a vague recollection that men die sooner. Some people feel that, well, something about suicide may be an issue. But they're not really aware of the data. They don't really know. And so I know that you will know, but hopefully what I'm going to present this afternoon, and when I'm talking about cancer and men, is a slightly different picture. Because when I presented this nationally in Scotland, I've been up here a month or two back, and certainly when I've been talking both in England but also in Europe, the message hasn't really got home about men and cancer. And I think that we are only just beginning to realize the importance of it. And when we're talking about equality and we're talking about equity, obviously sometimes equity, is it fair? There is a difference, but is there something we should be doing about it or not? Well, that's one thing we have to then decide. Because it's not just the fact that there is a difference, but why is that difference there? Actually, we can find that there's all kinds of different aspects of the way we live our lives as men that actually we can make a difference to. So I'm going to proceed on. There's quite a lot of information. I think it's we can share this. Is there a mechanism for sharing the presentations?
Yes, they're going to be distributed electronically.
Electronically, because I see the screen isn't particularly big, so therefore bear with me, folks, but I'm just going to talk through it. Most of it is just for illustration, not for you to gather the exact detail. But this is, for Europe, the proportion of deaths in each individual age. Now, I'm going to come back to age a lot during this presentation. And I'm going to specifically come back to the working age man, 15 to 64. Because I think that we have to be very aware of the difficulties of reaching out to men 15 to 64. So here we have the proportion of deaths for women. Now, here is, in this blue in the middle is cancer. Here is other causes, here are accidents, and here, down here, we have the cardiovascular. And we can see that there's this big burden of cancer for women in those early years. When we look for men, we see a bigger lump of, a bigger proportion of deaths from accidents and adverse effects. And cancer is there, but what does that mean? Is that something that we should be concerned about? And obviously down here you have the cardiovascular deaths. When I did the study of men's health across Europe, and I'm currently engaged in a bigger study being commissioned by the European Commission on the state of men's health across 34 countries. And that's what's going on at the moment. And it's the first time it's been recognized at the European Commission level that we need to have this information. But I did a study on it of 17 countries in 2003. And this is a ratio of male deaths to female deaths. And 3 age groups. We have 1 to 24, 25 to 74 in the red, and over 75 is the yellow. Now, anything over 1 means more men are dying. And what you immediately see is there's an awful lot more over the 1 than below. And it's only over the age of 75 that female excessive death starts to make a big difference. Before that, it tends to be men who are dying at an earlier age. As I say, it's the age issue which is the one we have to be aware of. And you see mental disorders, over 4 times young men dying. External causes, over 3 times more men dying. And even in cancer, where we saw in the graph perhaps not a big proportion. And you think, well, why is that? But more men are dying from cancer. When I looked at the state of men's health, that study I just did, I realized that we had to look carefully at these younger men. And this was a study I did on 44 countries. over the age of 15 to 44. But the first part of that study was to look at the median age of death, and this is a ratio. And what you find is nearly 2.8 times more young men are dying in this age group, 15 to 24, and 25 to 34, about 2.7 times more men dying. That's the median. And when you get to the Eastern European countries, those countries experiencing massive social change, massive social upheaval, you've actually got over 4.5 times young men dying than women. So when things go wrong, it seems to be the men that are the hardest hit in terms of mortality. But even right the way through all the age range, men have a higher rate of death than women. I broke this data down, this 15 to 44, young men and women. And what we have here is the 6 causes I looked at. This was for accidents, and you can see, don't bother trying to read these. These are just all the different countries. But you see here the graph on the right. The right is women, and the left is men. And you can immediately see that in all the countries, many more men are dying of accidents than women. We'd expect that. Eastern European countries, ridiculously high levels. This is for suicide. Again, we know that more men commit suicide. Perhaps it's a given. Perhaps we're not doing enough about it. But we do know that more men commit suicide, and when you compare the two, then that is absolutely significant. This is still one of the principal causes of death for women. But you don't get many deaths in women at this age. The majority of deaths are in men. This is disease of the circulatory system. Now, what's very important about this is that down here, deaths are from congenital problems. Here, this is ischemic. This is lifestyle that's caused these increased deaths. And what you've got is in these young men, these invincible men, these men who are invulnerable, we don't need to go out and do anything with these men because they just go and do what they want to do. Their man being what the man does. He's storing up problems that will result in him dying. This is liver disease. This is homicide. I put that one in because people are bombarded with messages about homicide. Actually, as a cause of death, almost doesn't exist for neither men nor women. But when it does, it's tragic. But in Eastern European countries, it still stands out. Now, this was what interests me, was the cancer. Because when you see the cancer data, you'll see that actually it's very similar. It's a very similar picture. Same rates of going up. But my question was, well, why is that the case? When you think of what is the causes of cancer deaths in women, you tend to think of the breast cancer and the cervical cancer and the ovarian cancer, and so therefore they are sex-specific. But what about men? Are they sex-specific? No. Testicular cancer almost doesn't exist again. And prostate cancer, it's too early. So these must be cancers that should affect men and women equally, i.e. they're not sex-specific. When you look at the data just for the United Kingdom, you can see here homicide right down at the bottom, liver disease coming up. This is cardiovascular disease, cancer, suicide, accidents. And for women, again, a similar picture. And when we go on to the next phase, 45 to 64, you can see this line continue to go up, but steeper for men than for women. And that's quite intriguing, isn't it? Because you imagine the message you're getting about the cancers in women being a particular problem, but there's something going on for men.